Gordon, we're here at Abbotsford House between Melrose and Galashiels, which is very close to your home. And Abbotsford House and Sir Walter Scott is something that's very close to you.
Well, yes, it is. We are probably only about 30 minutes drive from our home in Yetton, close to Kelso. And Abbotsford House is one of our go-to destinations. Whenever we have anybody coming to stay with us, whenever we have any visitors, and we're looking to have a day out, then Abbotsford is one of the first places that we come to. Primarily because it's a beautiful spot. We have the River Tweed running behind us here, but also with its links with Sir Walter Scott, who, of course, is one of Scotland's greatest novelists, and who incidentally went to the same school as me in Edinburgh, but not at the same time.
Which school was that?
It was the Royal High School, yeah.
And Sir Walter Scott, synonymous with Scotland, and Tartan as well, apparently.
Yes, indeed. Walter Scott had a great deal to do with what we would consider to be the modern tartans in Scotland, and modern tartan dress as well. And there's just that period in time was when the whole Scottish thing was starting, and he was part of it.
And where we are, the Scottish borders, it's very different from the rest of Scotland. How would you sort of describe the Scottish borders? What is its character?
Well, it is. It's a very rural part of the world, very agricultural part of Scotland. Very gentle rolling hills, as you will have seen. It's not like the Highlands. We don't have very high pointy hills, but very gentle, very rolling. It's a part of Scotland that people very often miss, because they come up from the south and they cross the border and their destination is Edinburgh. We're only an hour from Edinburgh, even where we're standing here.
Yeah.
So an hour from Edinburgh, and they're fixated with getting up to Edinburgh, and so they pass by. But it's a beautiful part of the country. Heather and I have lived here now for the past 5 years. But it was a relocation that was over 30 years in the planning.
Was it?
Because all the time that I was working full-time, we said that it would be nice to ultimately make our home in the borders, because it's where my forebears came from. My mother's family were farmers here. My mother was born on a farm probably about 15 miles from here. And so there was a great draw. Yeah. And although we didn't have family left in the borders when I was growing up, and when Heather and I started visiting so much, we felt a draw. And as I've said to people since we came here 5 years ago, I feel as if my DNA has come home. I feel so at home here.
Yeah.
And it's a very romantic notion, which brings us back to Walter Scott, great romantic poet, great romantic novelist. But I really do feel at home in the Scottish borders.
Sure.
And yet I'm an hour from where we used to live in Edinburgh.
Because you were a dentist in Queensferry, which is to the north of Edinburgh.
I was a dentist in Edinburgh. We lived in Queensferry, but my practice was in Murrayfield in Edinburgh.
Oh, okay. The stadium.
Called the Murrayfield Dental Practice. We had a view of the stadium from the rear of the practice.
Okay.
And I still use the practice car park for parking when we go to the internationals at Murrayfield. I made sure that I would have that privilege in perpetuity when I retired.
Do you and Heather miss the city? Do you miss Edinburgh?
Not a great deal, to be honest. I think we were always country people, if you like, outdoors people. I know I may not be built like an outdoors person, but we were always outdoor people, and we enjoyed getting out into the country. But we enjoyed the city as well. We used to go to the theatre. Heather, as you know, was previously an opera singer, and so we used to go to the opera in Edinburgh, but go to the opera in Glasgow. I mean, from Edinburgh, Glasgow is only an hour away.
Yeah.
But of course, it's now only an hour away from where we are here. So if we want to go up to Edinburgh for any reason, it's not a difficult journey. And now we also are lucky enough to be only an hour from Newcastle upon Tyne.
Yeah.
So if we want to go down there for any culture that may be found in Newcastle, then we keep in Newcastle in that direction.
It's very peaceful here. I mean, we're stood here on a Saturday morning, looking out the windows. You can see the gentle River Tweed flowing along there, and dog walkers out there. As far as Rotary is concerned, it's the calm before the storm for you, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's also the calm during the storm. And one of the nicest things when you're very busy, and as you know, I'm travelling a lot just now and away from home a fair bit of the time. But when you're busy and you come home, and I use Newcastle Airport because it's probably a more reliable airport to get to traffic-wise. It's exactly the same distance from home as Edinburgh Airport. But I find when I'm coming back from Newcastle Airport, you start off on the A1, and then you turn left up what we term the valley. And I find as I come up towards Yetton, I'm convinced if I had a blood pressure monitor on, my blood pressure would be dropping, because I just feel myself relaxing. And then, of course, you can be home, you can be grounded for a period before you set off again. And it really does recharge the batteries, ready for the next foray.
But how are you feeling about the year ahead?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I didn't say there was a degree of anxiety about how it's all going to go. But I think that's a good thing. I think it's important. You need the adrenaline rush to give you the energy to do it. It is a wonderful opportunity. I feel very privileged. When I joined Rotary in 1984, I didn't set out to be the president of Rotary International. All I set out to do was try and help make a difference in South Queensferry. And then, of course, I found I could make a difference elsewhere in the world. And, for me, that still remains the main purpose of being part of Rotary. To have an opportunity to begin to perhaps shape the future of Rotary is a real privilege. And to know that you have the confidence of your peers to do that is also something very special.
And this next year is all about creating hope in the world.
Well, it is. As you say, that is the theme for the year. And that's another interesting thing, that the whole idea of a presidential theme. I've been around for a while. I've seen several presidential themes come and go, and I often wondered how are they crafted? Is it that Rotary presents the president with a dozen themes and says, choose one, stick a pin in this page? But in fact, no, you have complete and utter control over it.
Okay.
And from the very start, it's all about what would you like the theme to be. And I like to talk more about the theme than my theme, because it's not about me, as I hope you realise.
Sure.
But two things about create hope in the world. One, I wanted it to be a call to action, because having looked back at previous themes, lots of very good themes, but some of them were more statements about what Rotary does.
Okay.
And that's fine. But I wanted it to be a call to action that I'd be saying to people, all right, let's go out and do something. So hence, create hope in the world, and not simply creating hope in the world. And the whole concept of hope, I'm a great believer that hope is the bedrock on which everything else is built. If we don't have hope, then we can't have anything. And so if we can give people hope and restore hope to those that have lost it, then I think we're going a long way to make big inroads in everything we're trying to do in the world. We're not going to have peace until people have hope.
No.
We're not going to have good health until people have hope. We're not going to have sanitation, water, until people have hope.
Yeah.
And so that's why we need to create hope. Create hope that we can do things, and I believe that we can, but also create hope for the people that are so in need of Rotary's service.
Sure. And then by June 2024, when your term comes to an end, what legacy do you hope will be left from your term in office? Well,
I'd like to think, first of all, I'd like to think there would be a legacy from my term in office. I'd like to think probably in two directions. One, internally, I'd like to think that the Rotary has begun to move forward to be a more modern organisation. We're on that road already.
Sure.
We're changing the way we meet. We're changing the way we dress for meetings. We are people of action. And that's so important. It's not simply about meeting for meeting's sake. It's about doing things.
Yeah.
And, so many new styles of clubs springing up. And I'm on record as saying I want to see Rotary everywhere in a style to suit everyone who wants to be part of us. So, if you want to be part of a traditional Rotary club and the Rotary club is successful, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to be part of a club that meets on a Saturday morning for bacon rolls and coffee, that's fine too.
Sure.
And we need to make that available to everybody. And e-clubs, passport clubs, everything else. This part of Scotland where we're standing, there's a new passport Rotary club in formation. And it's beginning to grow legs. Already we're seeing people who wouldn't want perhaps to be part of a traditional Rotary club are jumping on to be part of the passport club. And are being involved and becoming people of action. So that's one thing I'd like to see as my legacy. The other thing I would like to see, and as you know already, we are hoping to get involved in the mental health space this year and promote the importance of good mental health, give people who are suffering from poor mental health the support that they need to get on the road to well-being, and also improve access to mental health facilities. But probably the biggest thing is just to remove the whole stigma about mental health. The fact that if I came in to see you today and I was limping because I twisted my ankle, you would be extremely sympathetic, and I would be telling you all about my sore ankle, and you'd be saying, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? But, if I came in today and I was suffering from poor mental health, I wouldn't want to tell you, you wouldn't want to ask me. And so that whole stigma needs to be swept away. And I think with an organisation of 1.4 million people, we can do that. It's a big job. It's a big ask. But we've responded to big asks in the past. You only need to look at what we've done on polio and see how far we've come on polio. Now, I'm not saying that mental health should replace polio or should be the next corporate project. But what I am saying is that Rotary is good at responding to big asks, and this is a big ask, and let's make sure that we respond to it.
So you're talking about mental health, and what was remarkable maybe at the International Assembly held in Orlando earlier this year was that you talked about mental health, how it's touched your life personally. How difficult was that?
It was very difficult, yeah, because as you know, 8 years ago I lost my brother, my only brother, to suicide. And that's a very hard thing. And I found it very difficult in the early days to talk about Ian, because I felt that I had failed him in some way because this happened. But, he was a brilliant guy. He had a great career in the computer industry, and was very successful. But he was so brilliant that he was able to conceal the mental health issues that he had and the anxiety and the depression that he suffered from. And the one thing that I wanted in telling that story in Orlando was to let people know that it can happen to anybody. I wasn't seeking their sympathy, but I wanted them to know it could happen to anybody. And the number of people who came up to me afterwards, even among that 1,300 strong cohort in Orlando, the number of people who came up to me afterwards and said, your story is a very similar story to my story. It was amazing. And so I think this is sweeping away the stigma. This is being prepared to talk about things. This is being prepared to get it out there. And I think it was very important. But I tell you, it was not an easy presentation to give.
I'm sure.
And when I did it in Orlando, it was the first time I had ever been able to get through it without breaking down at the end. And so I was pleased that I was able to do that, because I didn't want to stumble over it. But it was for me. I felt it was an important story to tell, to illustrate why I feel so strongly about this subject. And as I say, there are many other people who have had similar experiences and are equally keen to get out there and advocate for removal of the stigma, helping people to find better health care, and also supporting them through their journey to recovery.
Sure. Heather, your wife of 42 years.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
I know she's a very, very tolerant lady, that's for sure. And has been a great support to me over the years. We are both Rotarians, not in the same club, and she joined some years after I had joined. Because we had a family to raise, and she joined in the early 2000s. I joined in 1984, but extremely supportive. Always a very good sounding board. I can always rely on Heather to tell me it as it was. If I give a presentation, everybody's going to tell me it was great, but Heather will tell me the truth. And so, yeah, I've said before, I don't think if you have a partner, I don't think you could do this job without the support of your partner.
And you do your own thing, don't you? You're not sort of...
we don't live in each other's pockets. No, we're not joined at the hip. But we do a lot together, obviously. But as I said earlier, Heather was a successful professional opera singer earlier on in life, and when we were first married, she was traveling a lot, performing in various different places. And then our girls came along and she moved more into a sort of teaching environment. But we have similar interests, but we also have separate interests. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I really do. I believe that's important. I've seen, I think of my own parents-in-law who were joined at the hip. You never saw one without the other. And then, of course, as they got older and eventually one of them passed away, it was very difficult for the other one to re-establish her life. And I think it's important that although you may be in a very loving relationship, it doesn't mean that you have to be together 24/7.
Sure. You're both proud Scots.
We are.
And in terms of Rotary, you're the second Scot to be the Rotary International President.
I am indeed.
John Kenny?
I follow John Kenny, who was president in 2009-10, who incidentally is from the same Rotary district as I. And his club at Grangemouth is probably only about 10 miles from my club in South Queensferry. So there must be something in the water in that area that makes people end up president.
Have you spoken to John at all? Have you spoken to John about, has he given you any advice?
Since I was nominated, hasn't given me a great deal of advice since I was nominated, but I had a very nice call with him when I was nominated, and I acknowledge the fact that, especially when I was first involved with Rotary beyond the club level, he was a great support to me and a great influencer on me. Very encouraging of me to go on to become district governor, for example, and then very encouraging that I would go on to become, as you know, we used to have a president of Rotary in Britain and Ireland, and he was very encouraging that I should do that role. And then also when I became a director. And so, he's played a big part in my Rotary life.
Sure. What is it to be Scottish?
I think the great thing about being Scottish is that you can identify with this small nation, Scotland, but also recognise that we're part of a larger nation, the United Kingdom. And I describe myself as a nationalistic Scot.
Okay.
But not a Scottish nationalist.
There's a difference?
There is a difference, yes. I'm a very proud Scot. I wear my kilt with pride. In Rotary, I walk under the saltire, not the Union flag. But I also believe that Scotland and England and Ireland, Northern Ireland and Wales should remain a united kingdom. Now that's just a personal view. I don't want to get political over it. But so nationalistic Scot, proud to be Scottish, just as you're probably proud to be English.
Absolutely. And we were at a birds' night the other night, and I hope you don't mind me saying that you said to me about the kilt you're wearing. And actually, it's a much nicer fit for you now because you've lost a lot of weight over the...
Well, I've lost a bit of weight, yes. I mean, as a rugby player in my youth, I could eat absolutely everything because I was training twice a week and playing rugby on a Saturday. And then, of course, I stopped playing rugby, but my eating habits didn't necessarily change. So my weight over the years has gone up and it's gone down and it's gone up and it's gone down. And round about last summer, I think, I thought to myself, it's time that you took yourself in hand, McInally, and shifted some of this weight. And so I managed to lose, around about 40 pounds, I think it is, since
what
then.
What did you do?
I finally got over the guilt of leaving food on my plate. I'm of a generation that my parents would make me clear everything off the plate.
Okay.
Because think of the poor starving children in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that if I did leave something, it still wouldn't make any difference to the poor starving children in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I finally overcome that hurdle. And other than that, it's just eating sensibly, Dave. I mean, I'm cutting down on carbs. I'm getting a bit more exercise. And I certainly feel a lot better for it. The kilt that you referred to, I had it made a year ago. I've had it taken in once, and I now need to have it taken in a second time. So,
and it's Modern Gordon.
Modern Gordon, yes.
Which is not the clan that the McInallys are from.
No, the McInallys belong to the Buchanan clan, but I chose Modern Gordon for my kilt. I could be flippant and say because I am one, I am a Modern Gordon, but no, I chose it for my kilt because I like the tartan. And
because Buchanan's yellow?
Buchanan's are red and yellow. I find it a bit garish, but that's a personal thing. A lot of people love it.
Yeah.
But I chose to go with the Modern Gordon.
And just finally, well, Bird's Night we had haggis. I hear that you've been sort of trying to educate Rotarians around the world about the delicacy that is haggis, even microwaving it in your own room.
Absolutely. Well, when we were on the board of directors back in 2007 through 2009, the tradition for the directors to have a sort of hour's hospitality before they go their separate ways of an evening. And we thought it would be quite nice at one of the meetings. It was a January meeting. It was close to Burns Night to serve them some haggis. So Heather managed to source a haggis from some Scots that she knew close to Chicago. It was delivered to the hotel, but we had to warm it up in our microwave in our hotel bedroom. And the smell lasted for the entire week that we were there. Every morning when you woke up, you could smell the haggis. But it was delicious.
Yeah.
And when we were at Orlando for the International Assembly, at the International Evening, we had a Scottish ceilidh. So we had Scottish country dancing, we had traditional Scottish music, we had whiskey for a toast at the end, but we also served haggis as a starter.
Yeah.
And I've found over the years going around the world that when you talk to people about haggis, they say, "Oh, I don't like haggis." And then you say, "Have you tasted haggis?" And they say, "No, but I don't like it." And so we insisted that people try it before they decided whether they liked it or not. And I was amazed at how many people in that party came up and said how much they had enjoyed the haggis. And it was a very nice haggis. It had been made from scratch by the chef in the hotel that the assembly was held.
And the chef was a vegetarian.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think Heather said to me that he was a vegetarian.
Possibly.
But he said...
that was in Chicago. That was in Evanston at the board, during the board meeting.
Yeah.
But even then he insisted on tasting haggis. That's right. Yeah.
So you're looking forward to the next 12 months?
I am. I'm looking forward to it very much. Keen anticipation. I'm looking forward to, and I'm already getting out to meet people all around the Rotary world, but I'm looking forward to getting out to meet people all around the Rotary world and just see for myself what we do. You know, once you see for yourself what you do, you realise that this is an organisation that can and will achieve so much. And to be able to go to places that I've not been before, and also to be able to thank people.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, is to recognise that, you know, we don't get paid for doing what we do in Rotary.
No.
And so to be able to go to people and thank them for all they do, I think is very important. And I think that's one of my roles as president.
Gordon McInally, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.